I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing that name.
Sing that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights. See, no one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Me, Tom Arnold, I am very famous. I absolutely because it's very true. Like, I hadn't freaking heard of you until I sitting on a Friday night. This is how bad my life is. Listen, fucker, good luck. Good luck with your rebranding. Like anybody knew what the name was before. What was the name? Okay, who gives a shit? That's a good name because it's got your name in it. You can pretend you're humble. You say, I'm not famous. And, which you aren't. So you're just, anyway, but I hope you get famous doing this. Good luck to you.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
Blinking.
I'll have what Joseph's has.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
By the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are the prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? There it is. There's the music. There is a QR code. What does that QR code lead to? I'll tell you what it leads to. It leads to your salvation. Okay, maybe that was a bit of an overpromise. It leads to a new podcast, or the podcast version of the Collective Cafe virtual coffee that I hold every single weekday from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in discord.gg/Alpha Collective. You can subscribe to Manifestation Monday, Thought Leadership Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, live book reads and discussions on Thursday, and No Agenda Friday. But I digress. Welcome. I hope you're well. This is Joseph Jaffe is not famous. And why would I be famous when I have the very famous Randall Crowder on the show? He resides in Austin, Texas, which means I'm not stalking him, but I do hope to meet up with him in March, South by Southwest, my home from home, the live music capital of the world. And even if it isn't, it is now. We are going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about blockchain. We are going to talk about discipline. Damn it. I mean, maybe not damn it. And we're going to talk about digital transformation. He will be on the show momentarily. But as I was alluding to in Alpha Collective's Discord server, we have this virtual coffee called the Collective Cafe. Look, I believe that children are our future. And in addition, I believe in the power of virtual coffee in this new world that we're living in, this world of work from home, this world where we are seemingly more isolated and more disconnected than ever before. What we need more than ever is a little bit of connection. And that's what we do every single morning. We actually turned the Collective Cafe into a podcast. But here's what I want you to know right now. If you get in, if you become a regular, which is absolutely free, we are going to give out 100 barrister roles in our Discord server, which means you will always have access to the Collective Cafe. Thereafter, you will be able to join the Collective Cafe through joining Alpha Collective. And there is an easy, cheaper way to do it through the entry level, through what was originally the free mint, or you can actually buy a full membership pass. But if none of that appeals to you, you can go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, bit.ly/collective cafe to go, or otherwise that QR code that you saw earlier that auto-magically appeared, and it just appeared again. Thank you, producer, which is also me. I'm talking to myself, which is the first sign of madness. I think the second sign of madness is when you actually answer yourself. It is an opportunity to be able to just, start the day off on the front foot. Start your day off the right way. If you are by yourself, you needn't be by yourself anymore. So we are making a big push to welcome you to a safe space where you can lurk and listen, or you can join us on the stage. Give us a try. You will not be disappointed. I'm excited about the power of Web3. In fact, I call this Media Brand 3.0. This is how I'm reinventing myself in this new Web3 reality. Access to me will only come through my creator coin, through NFTs, or through POAPs. As I deliver my thought leadership through the show, through Alpha Collective, through my speaking, and through my upcoming new book. And then there will be other ways to still interact. At the moment, these are not necessarily, some are and some are not token gated. Discord servers, LinkedIn newsletter, podcast to subscribe to. But where it starts to get very, very interesting then is even when you look at events. When you look at events, for example, earlier this week, we gave away a POAP, or there was a POAP to be minted. And if you have that POAP, you can come up to me at South by Southwest, show me that you have that POAP in your wallet, and I will buy you a cup of coffee. In fact, if you show me another POAP, I'll buy you a cocktail. So, you could have free drinks all night just because you showed up, and just because through the blockchain, we've been able to mint and solidify and immortalize that connection, that show-ups for POAPs. So I'm very, very, and I cannot wait to have Randall on in a few moments, because to find out what they're doing, we're going to have a lot of fun, PHUN. We are going to get funky, PHUNKY, as we talk about how they are thinking about engagement activation in this new reality. Well, it's time for the seated soliloquy. And today, in homage to Randall, the soliloquy is called Discipline. Now, I'm going to experiment a little bit today, just a smidge today, by showing a couple of clips and just seeing whether, in fact, these clips are possible or not in the giant, sentient YouTube algorithm in the sky. And of course, if they aren't, we'll just chop them out. But I want you to watch this video, which, of course, if later turns out that you can't watch this video, then this is not going to make any sense, or maybe it will. But just watch this, because I think it really does provide some amazing context for the power of discipline, the power of service, the power of military service, and what it can teach us in our lives as parents, as humans, as individuals, and quite frankly, as entrepreneurs.
To me, basic SEAL training was a lifetime of challenges crammed into 6 months. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
Look, there's not much more that I can add to that, except for the fact that I think as parents, quite frankly, even as managers, our job is to discipline our children. Our job is to discipline the people that report into us, discipline the interns. But of course, I don't talk about corporal punishment. I don't talk about discipline in an autocratic sense, but the ability to instill atomic habits, the ability to instill discipline, the ability to take pride in everything you do, to be able to, if you can make your bed in the morning, that clip actually is something that my wife sent to our kids. And it's amazing when we think about the power of the military, the power of what we can learn and what we can transpose. I've always been amazed by, for example, the Israeli military and how many expats or ex-members of the Israeli military have gone into business to create businesses that have changed the world. When we think about security, when we think about algorithms, when we think about secure transactions as well. Is it a brotherhood, a sisterhood? Is it nothing more than just a community, a powerful community of like-minded people who, by the way, are also providing the ultimate service, the ultimate public service, the ultimate public servants as well. So short and sweet soliloquy, because I wanted you to see the video. Now I want you to meet Randall Crowder, my guest today. Randall Crowder is the Chief Operating Officer of Phunware, a publicly traded technology company based in Austin. Randall is also a venture capitalist and angel investor with a focus on tech enabling complex systems. He's a graduate of West Point and retired as a captain after serving 6 years, with 3 in combat, where he was awarded 2 Bronze Stars. Randall, welcome to the show.
Joseph, it's a pleasure. And I got to tell you, that's probably one of the best intros I've seen. Great job setting the stage. You can see all of the discipline and professionalism that goes into what you do. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm about to now throw that all out the window. Well, first of all, before I throw it out the window, we will go from the sublime to the ridiculous. The sublime is to really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service. And it wasn't just, in fact, all service is service, but it wasn't just behind the desk. You were in combat as well. So thank you for protecting us, for defending us, and for putting yourself in harm's way for the greater good.
I appreciate it. And I got to say, I have to thank you for doing this. One, I love the rise of, good platforms like yours, because, that show of vulnerability is so important for so many people to kind of do that self introspection and really think about things. And I think we live in a world now where people are more willing to share. I'll tell you all the mistakes I make and all the dumb things I've done. And I think being able to share things with more relatable content is so powerful. But in that sense of vulnerability, I will say, I didn't know what I was getting into when I joined the military. I did it in '98, and I went to West Point before we even, we were in peacetime. Rumsfeld was downsizing the Army. So when I joined the military, I didn't know what I was getting into. Everything changed during 9/11, and I'm don't regret it at all. I'm glad I did it. Learned a whole lot, but I commend all the people who have gotten in recently because they knew what they were getting into. They knew that we were fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now it's still probably daunting. You start looking around the world at what's going on, and people who volunteer into times of conflict, they have my utmost respect and admiration. So I want to thank everybody else who's still serving today.
Well, I warned you that we would go from the sublime to the ridiculous. But before, we've got Portage Trends, who says, I got faith in you, bro, stacking fund shares and token. Wish I could buy coin on Coinbase. And then adds, I don't know if this is a good thing, but my 401k is all funware. That hopefully is the smartest decision Portage has ever made in his life. Maybe he does need to diversify a bit. What do you think?
I'm gonna tell you, what's the old Ocean's 11 when George Clooney's talking to Brad Pitt and he says, if you play long enough, the house always wins unless on that perfect hand you go all in and you beat the house. Hey, at the end of the day, I'm in there with you, Portage. I'm all in on funware. I am not diversified. I am not going anywhere. I have no intention of failing. The best is yet to come. And what we're doing, has the ability to literally change the world. So I like where you're at, and I'm in it with you, and we're going to win together.
Well, we're gonna talk about that, but you mentioned an amazing phrase there, an important phrase, all in, right? We understand what all in means from a Texas Hold'em standpoint, playing cards. We also recognize that in a game of cards, there's so many aspects to it, right? When you sit at the table, look for the sucker. If you can't see it, get up and leave because you're the sucker. But there is this idea of you don't play the hand. You play your opponent as well. But what does all in mean to you, and how much of this all in mentality, this philosophy, has come from your military background and experience?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. And honestly, I think, I talked about, being vulnerable, and I don't know that I've been all in my private life actually until recently. By design, as an angel investor and a venture capitalist, you aren't all in. I mean, yeah, I built my own companies to do those things. But I did it because I didn't have anything I was really passionate about. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I wasn't all in on something. And so I think being self-aware is knowing that too. You don't want to necessarily, refinance your house and max out your credit cards on a whim. You want to know what you're getting into. So you want to commit. But you want to commit in the right areas, and you want to be able to focus on the things that set your soul on fire. For me, I didn't have anything. I got out of the military. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, didn't know what I wanted to do. And so taking the best of the military, I was like, well, I'm going to know my enemy. My enemy are investors. So I'm going to network with investors and learn the investment game to make myself a better entrepreneur. It wasn't until 10 years later and a great career in investing that I came to Funware, which ironically enough is circuitous because I helped start Funware in 2009 with the first $1.5 million seed round. And then 10 years later, joined full time and invested again prior to us going public. And now I'm all in. It's Funware all day, every day. And the shareholders deserve that. And we're doing a lot. So Funware, the company, is a software company. For those of you watching right now, you'll see Fun Token. That's actually a blockchain asset we created on top of our enterprise platform. So you have Funware, and then you have Fun Token as a utility token. We also have Fun Coin, which is a really cool security token. So we're the first public company to be launching blockchain assets on top of our enterprise platform. So what does that mean? We've got to be all in, and we got to do it the right way. So you have a bunch of wantrepreneurs and scammers and fraudsters out there really confusing the Web3 blockchain crypto market space. We want to be kind of a shining example of what right looks like. That means we're going to be a little bit slower. We're going to be a little bit more purposeful, but we're trying to build something that can stand the test of time and really show that blockchain can be an incredible innovation in the enterprise space if done right. And so I'm all in on Funware, baby. It's time to do something really special, and we have an incredible team doing some really cool cutting edge technology stuff.
We're going to come back to Web3, and specifically what I'm going to do is I'm going to park this idea of the entrepreneurs, the scammers, etc., because there's very strong alignment between the two of us. The mission for Alpha Collective is to help onboard the next billion wallets and bring in the next billion brand dollars. That means, to a degree, cleaning up Times Square. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to become squeaky clean M&M store Disney, but it does mean we have to get rid of the 3-card Monty, players, the scammers. You cannot get mugged if you want to make, Times Square ready for prime time. But
you at least got to be able to call the cops in a relatively short order if you do get mugged.
Who are the cops in Decentraland? That's the problem as well.
That's true. That's true.
But I wanted to go back and let's be a little ridiculous for a second, because I asked you earlier if you'd seen this clip before, and I think, in a weird way, I'll find a way to bridge and segue back to the topic at hand, because life is serious.
Yeah.
We're living during very serious times, very troubling times, very unstable times. They call it VUCA. VUCA existed before all of this stuff: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We're not even sure who to turn to and who to trust. Yeah. And I actually think, there are probably 2 things that help us get through on a day-to-day basis, maybe 3. One of them is self-awareness, which is your point earlier. Sometimes being self-aware is to accept that you aren't all in. The other is to be able to draw on a sense of community. And the third is to be a little self-deprecating and laugh at yourself. So I asked you if you'd seen this clip, and I asked you if you'd object to this clip, and you said, show the clip. Let's show the clip.
Look who's here, the happy couple.
Hi, everybody.
The screen.
Oh, my baby.
Hi, Mom.
Victor, my boy. Okay, so this is our friend Richard Lewis.
Thank you for your service, bro.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And our neighbors Leslie and John.
What a hero you are. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. The real heroes are still there, but I appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're a grateful nation.
And this is our friend Larry.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I'm gonna excuse myself.
Victor.
What's... You didn't thank him for his service, asshole.
They thanked him. 3 people thanked him. Why do I have to thank him?
Fuck, how hard would it have been? Thank you for your service.
Does everybody have to thank him for his service?
Now you've ruined everything, Larry. I'm making all this delicious salmon, and the whole night is ruined.
Are you sauteing that?
Yes.
Would you mind broiling mine? Is that a face?
Get the fuck out. Leave.
Okay. Thank you for serving the hors d'oeuvres. Thank you for being a very good manager. Thank you for coming over in this brisk weather.
Thank you for leaving!
Well, I mean...
I love it. He's a national treasure. One of my favorite, I'm probably, one of these things is I don't care about political correctness or cancel culture, pretty much any of that. And so I love the intention of certain things. And if you can't understand the intention of things, if you get bogged down in the details, like you're probably not my people. Bill Burr is another person who more recently just a lot of the things he says, him and Larry David, and there's a few others. They're just, I like that they're willing to tackle these like obvious social issues that everyone is kind of scared and they'll shy away from. And it really like shines a light and shows you a mirror of, I've seen this play out all the time. And it's this kind of like, you see it right now, be real politically incorrect. How many people posted something about Black Lives Matter with really no context, not really a part of their life whatsoever, but you feel like, well, everybody else is doing it, so I better do it too. And it's like, well, no, you don't have to. And, nobody should really judge you if you don't. If it's important to you, do it. Great. I have a policy at Phun where, if there's a religious holiday that you want to take off, take it off if it's important to you. Like, I'm not going to mandate holidays, and I'm not going to judge you if, you are if you're Hindu or Buddhist, and there's something important, I'm not going to know them all. I'm not going to be aware of them all. But if there is something important to you, by God, go for it.
Well,
There's too much signaling going on right now. Too much signaling with no thought, no intention.
Well, there you go, and you use the word intention, and I get asked this question all the time. It always comes up, authenticity, and I think you cannot have a conversation about authenticity without intention, and that speaks to heart, right?
Yeah.
We often say things that we do our best. We can be a little socially awkward. We can if our intentions are good and pure, it's different. And this does bring us back to the Web3 space as well, because those entrepreneurs, those scammers, their intention is not to create a better world.
Yeah.
Their intention is not to be the rising tide that floats all boats. Their intention is to make as much money as quickly as possible, often at the expense of others. And that's how you can sniff out and sort the wheat from the chaff.
What's crazy is, people try to paint Web3 as this wild, wild west, as if it's not just another amalgamation of the exact same human condition. What you just described, you could probably replace Web3 with modern media, and the sentence would flow exactly the same. And so I think, part and parcel with intention is understanding what's the angle. I think you can have, you can accuse everyone else, and I do it, of, let's get to their intention, but I've got to look back at myself and also be accountable to that, right? So right now everybody's worried about, AI and, man, oh, look, it's Joe Rogan selling some pills. And it's like, well, no, it's not Joe Rogan selling pills. Somebody in Russia, copied AI, used AI to make it seem like he was selling, male enhancement pills, but it's not really Joe Rogan. You went out and bought them, and now you feel scammed. Were you really scammed? Or are you just kind of being an idiot? You're not being accountable to yourself. Like, do you really think, Biden's, selling cannabis? No, it's AI. So like this worried, state we're in of the deep fake, I hope it forces people to question everything, to think for themselves. Like I always say, you should teach your kids finance and engineering. Normally you don't learn that until college, and it's kind of too late. You should teach your kids about financial health and how to problem solve, from a very early age, while maintaining a good, strong imagination. And it'll help solve a lot of problems that will come on down the line, and you won't be so gullible. You'll understand people's intention, and you'll be accountable along the way. And so I think with a lot of this stuff, you just gotta, what's the angle? If it's Web3, what is someone trying to sell me? Why are they trying to sell me? What's their motivation? And if it's the media, it's kind of the same way. Media is a money-making endeavor, and negative media gets more engagement. So, wouldn't that kind of beg the question that you should probably do more research?
The crowd, the studio audience is literally off their, they're standing on their chair at the moment. What I love about that insight is this idea. I mean, I've never heard this idea that what AI is doing, it's almost a gift. It's almost this opportunity to shake us to the core and say, think for yourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really powerful. Look, it also opens up the concept of trust. It also basically says, who do you trust, right? We know social media taught us someone just like me, but inside a community, inside the walled garden of an NFT gated community, you have a safe space. You have a structured space. Randall, the other example, just going back to the idea of technology and humanity, is when you trust GPS to the point, you actually forget how to drive.
Oh.
You actually forget, you're not even looking at the road signs anymore. You have become an automated version of the machine.
just not nearly as capable when you're not paying attention to the road. It's
right.
So funny. I was in New York last week. Had a great conversation on the New York Stock Exchange with a dear friend, Mark Lopresti, who works with John Najarian and great team. And so he invited me up there, and also had a conference. And it was so funny. I was talking to a couple. I always like to look for people who look like they're in distress, because I remember when I was going to West Point, my parents went up to New York for kind of the first time by themselves. And it was like whenever I was going to actually leave and start my West Point journey, and it's called like Reception Day. And they always recounted this story where they were stopped on the corner and they didn't know where they were going, and somebody quickly walked up and was like, "Where are you going? Where are you looking for?" And they were like, they told them. It was real short, real curt. The intention was not to make a friend. The intention was to just help out some strangers. And some local New Yorker told them exactly where to go. And they always think so fondly upon that because it wasn't about making friends. It was just about helping them out. It was New Yorkers. I always say this. They're not rude, they're purposeful. They've got somewhere to go. They're not going to stop and smell the roses, and that's okay. But I always try to do the same thing and try to help people out. But I was talking to a couple who said it was a nightmare because GPS doesn't work with a bunch of tall buildings. It really, you don't know what block you're on. And your point is so well taken. They got down to, Manhattan, and all of a sudden GPS starts bouncing around, and Lyft and Uber haven't taken over New York because the same thing happens to them, although they're trying, and they didn't know what to do. And gone are the days. We grew up analog. So I still remember printing out MapQuest and kind of plotting my journey and figuring out where to go and knowing how to drive and where to exit and kind of having situational awareness. And then now, it's a bygone era. Nobody does that anymore. And if your phone loses signal or GPS stops working, it's like DEFCON 1. You're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do right now. And it's like, really? That's a shame.
Well, he's going crazy, or she, but I think Portage is saying is really, and by the way, people that are watching right now, you can feel free to comment and we'll put your comments on screen as well. But so Portage says, military mind, trust no one. And it's kind of like, almost like the truth is out there, the X-Files. I want to juxtapose that idea of trust no one with this idea that says trust yourself, trust your gut and your intuition. Where do you fit on the continuum of trust everyone, trust some people, trust no one, trust yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I know what Portage is saying, and he's using an economy of words to convey a thought, which I always appreciate. I'm more of a trust but verify,
right?
And I only say trust but verify because I do try to keep a tight circle. If you're talking to me and I'm engaged with you, you're already in my inner circle. I follow like 100 people on Instagram. I don't have a big circle. And so if you've gotten to me, I already kind of want to trust you. I don't want to grow cynical. I don't want to grow cruel. And I always want to be kind of open and inviting. And so I trust, but not blindly. And that's kind of like the AI, right? If I see something and I'm like, well, okay, I'm watching this, but something doesn't add up. Let me go ask somebody about this. Let me go check on this. If one of my engineers comes and tells me, hey, we've got a problem. I know that this needs to be fixed, and here's what I think we should do. I'm not going to immediately go, what do you know? I'm the COO, man. I got this under control. I'm like immediately like, I've got really great engineers, and if they tell me there's a problem, there's probably a problem. Let's gather the right resources to adjudicate that and figure it out and then solve it together. So I try to be trust but verify. I'm not always good about that because I am a little bit draconian sometimes. I try not to be, but I can be impatient and I can be a little authoritarian. That's probably the military in me. I like to get shit done. But I'm trying to be welcoming to different perspectives. That's something that I know we talked about this about the military. What's really cool that America, so small diversion, only because I'm welcoming a child here in the next couple of weeks, and she'll be half Ukrainian. My wife is 100% Ukrainian. Most of her family's still over there.
By the way, just make sure you say to your wife, thank you for your service. I'm just saying.
she doesn't let me forget it. She's like Tyler. She's out the door.
But carry on with your digression.
Better than me.
I don't want to get you or me into trouble.
I know. No, she's amazing. And what's really cool, and a lot of people don't realize this, is how actually proud of America I am and our military, our military machine. I can watch like Russian troop movements and like it's a total and utter failure and disaster of an effort. And like I wouldn't have thought that 10 years ago. Before we went into Iraq, we were training to fight Russia or China. We were all in on force, massive tank movements, and that was the enemy, right? And we've been trained that since the Cold War. Russia has been weakened more in the last 18 months than in 50 years and trillions of dollars of Cold War effort. And they were done so by money from America. Make no mistake, we spent a lot of money in Ukraine, but you've got a lot of, sorry for who this offends, not sorry, a lot of idiots that think they know what's going on over there, and they have no clue. We are fighting a proxy war in a part of the world that represents an existential threat, and not in a single American troop has been put in danger because the Ukrainians are doing so well. That's pretty fucking cool. Oh, by the way, the Ukrainians would have failed completely if it wasn't for our money and our resources. Guess what? So would America if France didn't fund us in the American Revolution. So now we want to be like, well, that's not our war. Well, should France have told us the same thing? We would all be speaking King's English, maybe. We might be speaking German if France hadn't saved us and we hadn't saved them. So we live in a global world, do things, and I think the fact that everybody here, not everybody, but a lot of people here are, well, we've got our own problems at home, and why are we giving so much money to Ukraine? And because we don't want to fight that war. Everybody wishes we could go back and not fight Hitler and it would have stopped his rise to power. The fact that Putin did this is an existential threat. And it's what we should have done with Hitler and should have nipped it in the bud. We're doing it in reverse. And it has nothing to do with Biden, Trump, or Zelensky. This is, Ukrainians are fiercely independent. It's like Texas. They don't want to be a part of Russia, and they're fighting their ass off for their right to live independently. And that's the most righteous war we fought since World War II. So anyways, small diversion. I apologize.
Yeah, come on. I have to give you the air horn for that. Look, there's so much that's interesting to unpack. One is history repeats itself. Those, what do they say? Those that don't understand and study history are doomed to repeat it. The other thing is we have very short memories.
Yeah.
The third thing, and I actually heard this morning, is kind of interesting. I may be off by 30 or 40,000, which of course every life lost is one life too many. Yeah. But I think during World War II, about 450,000 Americans lost their lives. Russia, do you know how many Russians died during World War II?
Millions.
20 million.
Millions.
So the problem is you've got a bunch of stuff, stubbornness can only get you so far, right? But at some point, I always look at, it's funny, it's not to kind of, even minimalize or marginalize, but survivor, outwit, outsmart, outlast. Yeah. Outlasting is just one component. You can't just try and survive. Life is too short just to tread water and survive. You still have to outwit and outsmart in order to be able to outlast.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
You're 100% right. And I think it's that being a student of history is important, but it goes back to what we were saying before, just for me, social media is kind of like where we see blockchain, but I guess it's like a pen, right? I think there's an old analog to this where a pen can write the Declaration of Independence. A pen can also, if wielded well, stab someone in the neck, and it can also be used to, draw doodles. It's what somebody does with it that's important, right? And so I think, social media, I hate to say it, but it's becoming like a rattle, and it's something you give babies to just entertain themselves. But social media can also be used to educate and inspire and build community and do all these amazing things. It just depends on who wields it. And unfortunately, a lot of people get on these echo chambers online, and they're just constantly I think there's some crazy statistics in Twitter where 60 or 70% of links that are retweeted aren't even opened. So people are just power pushing nonsense without any thought or consideration.
Keyboard warriors, basically,
yeah,
right?
They really are. And it's such a shame because it's such a great tool and it could be used for so much good. Somebody sent me an article, one of our board members sent me an article. It was entitled, "Why Smart People Hold Stupid Beliefs." And it's this like really interesting scientific article about like, because I know people now where I'm like, really? You posted that? Like, but I know you. You're a smart, capable executive at a really great company. You're not an idiot in my mind, but you post really stupid things. And it's hard for me to understand it. And this article tries to unpack that about why that keeps happening. But history repeats itself. You look at Germany, people will always ask, like, how could that happen? Like, how could the Jews let it happen in the beginning? How could normal Germans allow that to happen to their neighbors? And there's this inertia of groupthink that can take hold of humans if we're not careful. And we keep pointing at other people like, God, it must suck for them, without realizing the hypocrisy of it all. You think, oh, Putin controls the media. It's like, yeah, our media in America is pretty controlled too. And it's pretty bifurcated. And, it's a real shame we don't see our own footfalls in a lot of this.
Footfalls, I like that. And footfalls, of course, are also unforced errors as opposed to forced errors.
100%.
So if social media is a rattle, then what is blockchain and what is Web3? And I'll say, the backdrop of it as well is I loved, the concept of the enemy. Know your enemy, you said. Yeah. I'm a big believer that we need enemies to push off against. Otherwise, it's very hard to triangulate our role and our direction and even, our momentum. So Web 2 for me is the enemy. Yeah. This is the failed promises of Web 2, the ability for us to be harvested and traded like data capsules in the Matrix, the misinformation, the disinformation. I just haven't seen. I'm an advocate for the creator and for artists and art and creators to be able to make money. So I've pushed off against Web 2, and I don't see much redeeming right now. So Web 2 is the rattle. What is Web 3?
I think it's such a great question. So 2 things on that before I answer it. I think that for me, blockchain as a whole, Web3, whatever you want to call it, is probably the single greatest innovation to reach the global economy since the Medicis commercialized double entry accounting. And I say that purposely because I think people first think of this economically. You can't help it, Bitcoin and fast money and all this stuff. So there's an economic, kind of catalyst to all of this. But if people that understand Web3 and blockchain, will tell you it goes far beyond, financial structuring. It can be, data, identity, how you think about contracts, how you think about this immutable ledger, the list goes on and on. Almost every global function could theoretically, eventually be run on a blockchain. And so what does that give us? I think right now it's a necessary idealism to get people to start thinking the right way. So I totally agree with you. We always need an enemy. I think we're a yin and yang, black and white, binary type of society. We always need a bad guy, but we also need a good guy. We need a rallying cry. Like, we're all romantics at heart. We want to believe in the very best of ourselves, even if we don't always see it. And so what blockchain represents to me is this decentralization of centralized power, and the centralized power is what is most corruptible. And so if you can, if you have a data center where you put a bunch of high performance computers into a room and you control the data, you control people's free will. I mean, I always say, like, your free will is carefully crafted for you by technology companies. I mean, most people don't know about the Armenian genocide because they were never told about it. Unless you went out and found out about it, you wouldn't know about it because media companies here didn't deem it worthy to show you. So, we're only a product of what we're shown, and technology companies decide what we see, and their algorithms dictate that because it's centralized and controlled by somebody else. Technology companies have become the most powerful entities on earth, maybe even more so than finance and politics. You look at like the Twitter hearing, it's like, so wait, you decided to censor this? Why? Well, because it followed our guidelines. Like, wait, what? So like there's a very existential threat to society because there's a very small segment of society deciding the content that we're consuming. Well, blockchain unpacks all of that. Like you don't have a warehouse full of computers running data. You could decentralize all of that and not have any point of failure. You could run, voting on blockchain so you get rid of fraud. You could run stock markets on blockchain so that you get rid of dark pools and naked shorting. Like more often than not, people fear, so I'll tell you this and I'll shut up. I don't get really excited about the anonymity of blockchain. I get really excited about the radical transparency of blockchain. That doesn't mean I need to know your social security number. It doesn't mean I need to know, be able to steal your identity. What I'm talking about is the ability to stop the fraud, stop the voter fraud, stop trading on dark pools and naked shorting and all the bullshit that people in power want to have an edge to manipulate people who lack the power. And if you shine a light on that, you put it on a blockchain, and you can't hack it, and it's an immutable record, you could break down all of that. And that is an existential opportunity for society.
Yeah, and also this idea of, going back to anonymity. Anonymity was the original promise of Web 2. It was allowing David to compete with Goliath. It was leveling the playing fields. But what it became was almost a mask or something for not David to hide behind, but for Goliath to hide behind, masquerading as David. Yeah. And when that happened, anonymity became, and now we see it in Web3 with respect to doxing versus being undoxed. There was nothing wrong with being undoxed until there was, until there was just too much interference and noise. Where it just created too much confusion. And as they say, confused buyer doesn't buy.
Yeah. What's crazy too, if people, I think it's always like, so Facebook does this all the time, right? They're like, well, if we gave everybody the value of their data, they'd really only make like $5 a month. And like, they're gaslighting you. It's all bullshit. Brands don't care about Facebook and Google. They care about reach. They care about outcomes. They will go to the consumer directly if they could. There's just no efficient way to do that. Blockchain does represent an efficient way to do that. Not exactly today, but it has the potential to grow into that over time. And maybe it's not a blockchain, maybe it's Hashgraph. Doesn't matter. It's all the same stuff. Can I decentralize a lot of this stuff outside of the hands of a centralized point of failure, vulnerability, or control? That's what we're trying to do. So with like Phun Coin, it's the value of data. It's like, can you convince people to hygiene and sanitize their own data? And then with Phun Token, it's this kind of idea of value of engagement. Can I incentivize you to engage with me? And so ultimately we're saying, like, I always use this cruise line example because Kathy Mayer sits on our board. She used to be the CMO and CDO of Carnival. She always had this very common issue. She's like, I want to find more customers. And when I find more customers, I want them to engage with the things I want them to do. I want to drive profitable behavior. And so I was like, well, give me an example. It's like, well, every time we send a ship out of port, I want to basically sell more excursions. Cool, that makes sense. How do you sell excursions today? She's like, well, we put up signs. And if we have the staff, sometimes people will ask people and do kind of the old school face-to-face selling. I'm like, wow, that's archaic. Well, with our existing Phunware platform, we deliver mobile applications at scale. We built the first NFL app, the first NASCAR app, all of Fox's mobile applications. We've done hospitals, hotels, you name it. We have more experience building mobile ecosystems than just about anybody. And we've done it at the highest echelons of brands. What we want to do is say, okay, well, if we had our software inside, a cruise lines app, we could just at least show commercials like, a push notification. Hey, do you want to check out all the amazing excursions you're going to have available on your trip? You could watch a video of people, riding horses in the ocean or doing whatever it is you want to sell them. We know video converts at a much higher rate. Bada boom, bada bang, you're done. And so she's like, well, yeah, I like that. I want to do that. But what if I know my conversion numbers and I know that if I can get people to watch the video, I know that I can sell more excursions, let's call it on average $100 a ticket. Now I'm starting to talk about some money I could use to spend to convince people to watch the video. Because if your kid's yanking on your arm because he's got to go to the bathroom, maybe you don't want to respond and watch a 30-second video. But if I pay you to watch the video, maybe you'll watch the video. So how do I autonomously incentivize people to either watch a video, arrive early if you're a hospital for your appointment, arrive early if you're an airline for an airline flight? Like, how do I reward behavior? And so we created Phun Token to do just that, this autonomous incentivization program, so that we can reward good behavior. And then while we're doing that, we're generating data that the consumer will control, and that'll create an entirely new repository of data that's controlled by the consumer, first-party data, where they manage consent. And then if you can build a big enough pool of that, brands will go to you. They'll skip Facebook and Google, but you got to get people to reframe their own narrative and think, it's my data. I should be in charge of it. I should be in control of it. And if anybody makes money on it, I should at least be cut in on the deal. And so that's what we're endeavoring to do. And Phun Wallet on iOS and Android is our application to kind of build that center of gravity around those two concepts. And then we want to be the first public company to do it. So it's kind of cool to try to navigate this as a public company, because we have to do it compliant, and we can't rug pull you. We can't scam you. We'll go to jail. So it's fun to be able to try to say, what does right look like, and can we be a part of that story?
Well, it's like the Rakuten of Web3, or at least they will, when they end up buying you, from my mouth to God's ears, you're welcome. We know
you're gonna have to kill it. If you're right about that, you're not gonna be not famous Joseph anymore. You're gonna be Joseph called that one in a big way. And
but then when I call you, it'll be like, I'm sorry, Joseph, who? I don't know you.
No way, because by then we would have already had a couple drinks at South by Southwest. We're going to be good buddies.
I want to be in a circle. You know, one of the best parts of this is it goes back to that line from Wall Street: the bulls and the bears make money, and the pigs get slaughtered. And I feel like brands have been pigs for so long. Brands have taken and taken and taken, and they've never really given back, and they've assumed loyalty and retention is just a given. And so I want to ask you one important follow-up. When I wrote Flip the Funnel in 2010, the part of it was what I called the eye of a deer was incentivization, recognize and reward. The only thing that people pushed back on me or to me was the fact about incentivization. And I was a big fan, and I still am, of being able to not be greedy about when our consumers give us more than just their money for our product and service. That's table stakes. How do you get around this idea, or how do you respond to critics that say you're greasing the wheels, you're bribing, there is which of course is ignorant against small people saying dumb things. But how do you respond to this idea of paying people or incentivizing them to actually produce engagement, data, value, contribution?
It's a great question. And we look at it kind of as an advanced Web3 loyalty and rewards platform. So if you think about it, it's really, so we work with Atlantis in the Bahamas. So we actually deployed our entire mobile ecosystem to Atlantis. It's a 140-acre island, 5 distinct properties. Anywhere on that island now, because one part of our platform is location-based services, which means we can derive a blue dot indoors the same way you could derive a blue dot outdoors using satellite. We can triangulate a mobile device within a 1 meter accuracy. And we can also do it outdoors. So anywhere you are on the Atlantis island, you can know where you are, what's around you, what amenities could you discover, what tours should you go on. We're actually rolling out something really cool about like kind of a treasure hunt. really were only interested in location in the very beginning of our conversations. And we were like, yeah, that's fine, but that's just a means to an end. What we're really talking about is contextual engagement. Like, how do I get the right content to the right person on the right screen at the right time in the right place? And so when we rolled it out and you just saw it on the screen, in less than like 10 months, they made $1.2 million through the app we deployed. And so huge in hospitality, driving incremental revenue, but you're also driving guest satisfaction. You're trying to enhance the guest experience. You're giving them easy ways to plan their trip and figure out what's important to them. So if you think about Disney World, nobody goes to Disney World without downloading the app, because the app is going to make their life better. And so by pointing people in the direction of things that is going to be important to them, and giving them some, and what we want to do with blockchain with Phun Token is basically white label it. So we can do it on brand. You could get, Cruise Coin, for example, but it would just be white labeled Phun Token so it stays in compliance. Well, you can offer that as just a thank you. It's not trying to, hey, please turn on your location so that I can track you and sell your data just like Facebook. It's thank you for, checking in early. Here's 100, hotel coin. You can spend it at the bar, anytime you want.
Universal currency.
Yeah, it feels more like a transaction. The cool thing about that, and why we're really excited about blockchain, is CFOs love it. Because if you think about a rewards program, you have to keep that as a liability on your books. When you use blockchain, the question should always be, when you see a project in Web3, is why blockchain? Well, the good thing about the way we're structuring Phun Token and Phun Coin, those rewards programs, you don't have to keep it as a liability in your books anymore, because it is that universal, token. It's something that you can do something with. You're transferring custody over to the consumer. Now you don't have to keep it as a liability. CFOs love that, because they'll sell their rewards points for pennies on the dollar just to get them off the books. There's billions of liability out there because of these rewards programs that just don't work. And so you want to have that nice social contract with somebody where you're saying, thank you for being a customer. Thank you for being here. Here's some things you might be interested in. And I want to reward you if you engage in the things that I think would be rewarding to you. And oh, by the way, if I make some money, you make some money. That's the way it should be.
That is a mic drop moment, because the number one question always is, how do we sell to senior management? And to quote the famous line from Jerry Maguire, "Show me the money." Absolutely. And that's exactly what you just did. We have a few moments left, and we'll do kind of this somewhat lightning round, but I always try and find a quote for my guests, and this is what I found for you. Self-respect is the fruit of discipline. The sense of dignity grows with the ability to say no to oneself. I just thought, just an extension of this idea and bringing it home back to discipline, self-awareness, self-care, self-love, but also self-respect, trusting your gut, but also knowing, I guess, sometimes when to kind of, when not to. How do you respond to this quote?
I love it. It reminds me of a Jim Rohn quote that says there's only two real pains in your life: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. And the pain of regret weighs a ton. And I think I love that you started off with discipline, because I think this is sad to even say out loud. People think discipline has a negative connotation, like it's a bad word.
Right.
It couldn't be anything, but it's all about perspective, right? In martial arts, discipline is power and respect, and it's poise, and it's the ability to not fight because you don't have to, and all this other stuff steeped in tradition. And then, discipline to the uninitiated kind of means micromanagement and, bad parenting and, commando parenting and all this other stuff. So I guess it's really your perspective. I love discipline. I love embracing discipline. I always say, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're productive. And just because you're productive, it doesn't mean you're effective. And
nice.
Discipline will make you effective. Time blocking is something that a lot of people do that really, excel at being able to manage their day. Everybody's got the same 24 hours, but man, some people do a lot with that 24 hours and others squander it. And I think discipline is one of the last great competitive advantages.
I mean, well said. And I mean, the mic, you drop it, you pick it up, you drop it again, you pick it up, you drop it, you pick it up again. That poor microphone, leave it alone. Leave it alone. I want to just touch on two more things because we didn't actually touch on it, but I think it's so important. The role that military service plays, but the difficulty of transition. What do you mean by that?
You know, if you think about, I always recommend this book, Startup Nation. It's a book kind of about how Israel embraced, entrepreneurship because of its service to the nation. We don't do that great of a job at helping military men and women transition in America. A lot of times they think, well, I guess I got to go be a security guard or a logistics, executive or something, or, it's very kind of stovepiped. But what we're doing is incredibly entrepreneurial. Fighting these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was no playbook and people had to figure it out as they go. And what you learn about organizational development and leadership is just incredibly valuable to private sector. But you have to first embrace that yourself and know that you have something to offer. So it doesn't really matter if you're in the military or transitioning as an athlete out of professional sports. I always say don't disclaim yourself. I've done it in the past. Self-deprecating humor is one thing, and it's good, and it can be used as a tool to create a bridge with people in relationships. But when you start to disclaim yourself, like, people have this imposter syndrome or they don't feel like they belong in a certain room. Well, people won't assume you do belong. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so when you're transitioning out, for anybody transitioning out of the military, understand that you bring immense value to the settings that you're in. And in a lot of experiences that people who haven't served in the military don't have. So I always say, like, put me up against a Harvard grad. I'll go up against a Harvard grad any day. Put me up against somebody who's done billion-dollar deals on Wall Street. I'll go up against them. You have to have a certain level of confidence in yourself, because, and it's not cockiness, but we're social animals. Like, I like when I can learn something from somebody else. But if you don't give me that in return, then I sometimes I won't have time to pull it out of you. And so you want to lead with value. And so I think, getting out of the military, I tried to do that. I tried to lead with what I know, lead with what I learned, and lead with ways to add value. And so that began in the very beginning of my career with a lot of operational planning and organization and discipline, because that's what I had learned in the military. And then I learned the other stuff along the way, finance and, technical skills and things like that. So I think, be humble, be confident in the skills that you do have, and try to find ways to offer those to those you find yourself, around, versus just constantly kind of waiting to be taught. Always remember you have something to teach.
Such wise words. Portage said PTSD is real, and certainly the one thing that we know we need to do, and it's almost egregious, it's almost unacceptable, it is unacceptable, and it's almost unforgivable, is how we take care of our veterans, and how we need to do a better job. And hopefully in this Web3 world reality, with new jobs, with new ability to be the rising tide that floats all boats, we can do something, and we can make sure that no veteran is left behind. It's important, and it's the right thing, and it's the decent thing to do. I could talk to you for hours, but the good news is we're going to be doing that in Austin, Texas. My new best friend, Randall Crowder, the Chief Operating Officer of Phun, where we brought in the noise, we brought in the funk. We didn't even have an opportunity, sadly, because of this wonderful conversation, to talk about the fact that he can sleep anywhere. For example, he slept on the drive into Iraq in 2003. We didn't have the time to talk about the fact that his goal for wealth is to create Second Chance Puppy Ranch and Cow Sanctuary. We did not even have the time to talk about the fact that this man developed a top secret algorithm that increased the predictability of roadside bombs by over 50%. This man is Q. he is the real deal. He is the full package. He's a smart man making smart decisions. He's good looking. He's developing algorithms. I'm just going to stop there. But more importantly, if you want to find out more, please follow him on Instagram, on the Twitter, in Discord, on LinkedIn. Find out more how to work with Randall at randallcrowder.com. Join the Phun train, funware.com, funtoken.com, and funwallet.com. And above all, remember, trust and verify, or maybe, as I like to say, trust first, trust in man, trust in woman, trust in humans, and then verify. But if you fail the verification, you are dead to me. And you know what will happen in those moments? I'm telling you, watch out, because Chuck Norris will be coming for you.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. See you in Austin, Randall. And good luck for the new delivery. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.